This is a very grave matter, and I don't think the fact that the minister called you is sufficient. She may have called you maybe on matters to do with Kilifi County, but not with the Senate, because she is not invited here to come and meet the Speaker. And much as you extended courtesy of receiving her call, the minister needs to know that this House is terribly disappointed in her conduct. CS Aisha Jumwa, a long-serving parliamentarian who's been here in Parliament for over 10 years, knows very well that when there is a conflict of diaries between the executive and appearance in Parliament, the legislature takes precedence. I know President William Ruto very well. If any minister were to tell him that I cannot make it to your meeting because I am scheduled to appear before Parliament, he can never recall that minister to appear before them, either at cabinet or at an official briefing, at the expense of the representatives of the people. This behavior by CS Aisha Jumwa is something that I find quite astounding, because while ministers and her colleagues have been before this House 3, 4, 5 times, her and the Prime Cabinet Secretary are the two ministers that have never set foot in the Senate. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'd wish, with your guidance, and I'm willing to be persuaded by colleagues, maybe who you may grant an opportunity to say a thing or two about this, the conduct of these two ministers, Mr. Speaker, that let us be bound by the collective reasoning of the House, because it is not proper for, I have seen the letter from the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. There's an officer by the name Joseph N. Busiega. These are people who need not be in public offices, and I'm not excusing the Prime Cabinet Secretary. But by the time you're writing a letter at 3:57 p.m. for a meeting that is supposed to happen the following morning at 9 a.m., are you normal? Do you know what you're doing in that public office, Mr. Speaker? This cannot be entertained. And I cannot allow Parliament, Mr. Speaker, to be treated like this. Therefore, we have to register our disappointment with both ministers in the strongest terms possible, including the amendment that we have just done to the Powers and Privilege Act, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the amendment is yet to become official law of the land, because it still has to go through the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. But if it were up to me, we need to issue summons to both ministers, because first of all, we need to establish whether they recognize that Parliament is bicameral. And therefore, because I am sure they have appeared before our colleagues in the National Assembly, and therefore I don't get what their spite about the Senate is and what their motivation might be, Mr. Speaker. There is nothing that members are begging. You're coming to respond to issues of the representatives of the people, which the people of Kenya are asking you as a minister through their elected representatives in this House. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to be guided by colleagues in their consideration of this matter, so that we make a decision jointly as a House on what to do. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we will eventually have to make a decision on the number of times a minister can skip appearance, and the maximum number they need to exhaust on postponement, especially postponement. We issued directives the other day on what is a standard letter that you write to Parliament. It cannot be you just say you can't appear, no suggestion when you are next available, no credible reason why you're not appearing. Therefore, without appearing to be lamenting, Mr. Speaker, I want to humbly request that we take a decision as a House on what to do with these two ministers. I thank you.
Senator Sifuna.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, you caught me just confirming with the law